Everything has been normal. One thing stays the same.
The champions have been able to do what only the toughest and strongest could do in 2020.
The dynasty is before us.
The Tigers are still the best team in the land.
3 flags in 4 years.
It is Richmond's crowning glory.
They've won the Gabba Grand Final in the year of COVID.
And they complete an odyssey the likes of which the game has never demanded.
They have absolutely turned this club into a juggernaut.
The events from the Gabba on October 24 became an instant part of footy folklore. The first grand final staged outside Victoria in a season that ran through the height of a global pandemic. A night grand final tasted for the first time, a victory that crowned a dynasty for the team of the era, and an individual performance that elevated one man surely to legendary status. It was something to admire. It was something to behold, and it is something to recollect. Before we charge into a fresh season, we go back to the Gabba, to the 2020 Grand Final, and all that it entailed and all that it is going to mean when the recent history of the game is written. Joining me to do so is Nick Riewoldt, a great admirer of this Richmond era. Nick, welcome.
Thanks, Jared. Incredible era, really. And I think it's the culture of the Richmond Football Club that has captivated me right the way through, and I will say proudly that I declared them halfway through the year last year and the year before that. So I've been one of their biggest fans, and to see the transition over the last 4 years from a side that was on the edge, really, and a lot of careers were in question, to see what they've accomplished has been absolutely remarkable.
So to bring it to life, the experiences and the memories of two men who are at the centrepiece of modern Richmond history. The coach, Damien Hardwick. Dimmer, welcome.
Jared, thanks. Nick, how are you?
And Jack Riewoldt, who's so much admired in these corridors and at his own club. Jack, welcome.
Jared, Root.
Jacko.
We're going to relive varying moments and drop you in and out of parts of the game, but I am curious, have you watched the game in its totality?
No, not in its totality. I've watched bits and pieces. I always get distracted and walk away. But, yeah, there's some special bits within those games that you look back and you sit down and you watch with anxious eyes in a way, and then to see how the game unfolded.
Does it live vividly in your mind?
Bits and pieces do, there's no doubt about it. But the season and the game progresses so quickly. You know, once again, we're sitting there and we're in celebratory mode, but then 2 days later we're saying goodbye, ending careers at the same time. So you quickly move forward in AFL landscapes.
How do you go about doing that? What's the context of actually watching the game? Do you flick on the TV and it's on, so you think, I'll sit down and watch this bit, or do you go out of your way to watch it?
No, I'm generally a sit down and if it's on, I'll watch it sort of thing. But I just haven't had the time for some unknown reason to sit down and relax. What are you going to say?
I'm the exact opposite. I've got a really bad habit of coming home and nothing on TV on Fox, and I'm flicking through. And then, of course, now with everything on demand, you can watch anything you want at any time. So I usually flick it on, fast forward through the first half, but get through that second half, and just it's quite special actually to relive it. Like you get to live it as a player and as a coach out there, and then to watch it from a different lens through what the fan views at home is something completely different.
I am curious, did it feel like grand final week? So we were removed from it, and you both know the rhythms as a player and a coach and recent time. Did it feel like grand final week? Well,
it did, I reckon, the last day beforehand. Training up there and travelling up early sort of made it still feel like an away game, but we knew that there was something on line, something big on the line, obviously, with the premiership. But early on in the week and in the hub, we were quite lucky to be in our own little hub. We were probably in a little student accommodation that was supposed to be temporary, and it became the Tigerland of the Gold Coast, really. And it sort of normalised everything. And Queensland not being this parochial footballing state as what Victoria is, probably, yeah, it died down, that sense of grand final week a little bit. But when we got to the ground, it was all on.
You said there was still a bit on the line. I mean, obviously the Premiership Cup, but did it feel just as much was on the line because it was so different? There wasn't as much hype, at least externally, and for us that weren't able to be there and be a part of what is the biggest week in the calendar every year. Did it feel like the stakes were as high?
It did To a degree, because we sort of spoke about probably before we went into the hub that this might be the most special cup ever won. You know, to think the fact that you're going to be away for 30 days and then all of a sudden that 30 was a chance to become 100, it was going to be an enormous achievement whoever won it. It was going to be whoever dealt with adversity, resilience, all those sort of things that you admire in, you know, great athletes and great teams was going to come to the forefront of this AFL Cup that was going to be won, you know, in a foreign land for Tigers supporters. And, you know, I thought it could have been incredibly special. And I think our players, as we started to progress through the finals, started to realise what we could actually achieve.
And being at night did it, so it clearly changes the dynamic of the day. How did you find it?
Well, I loved it, personally. I actually quite enjoyed it. You know, we obviously play night games all the time, and the grand final, when you're in it as such, you're just looking forward to that moment coming. But I think the build-up from a player and coaching point of view was similar, but I think the night aspect for me, like I walked out and saw the entertainment, and that inside the actual the arena, it was incredible to see. I actually enjoyed it. Was it a bit late? Probably, but you know, I sort of enjoyed the night aspect of it.
I can vividly remember, and the night games are so long. You've got the whole day to get through. You've got to go. Guys like to have a sleep. They like to prepare differently. I like to have a bit of a nap, and I can remember standing at my window, looking over the city of Brisbane, and it was absolutely teeming with rain, and there were still 4 hours to go to the game, and you just start to play the game a little bit more when it's a night game. I think also the aspect of yellow footies. I'm not a big fan of yellow footies. I like playing day footy, playing with red footies. We didn't play with a red footy once last year, and it was just due to the fact that we're playing a lot of night games or playing afternoon games where you use a yellow footy. The rain came into it, and all of a sudden you start playing those little mind games going, well, is the rain going to suit us? The storyline was that it would, and it probably didn't the way we played early on.
How do you control that? So you're a key forward. You like clean, dry conditions. You want to be able to clunk the footy. You don't like the yellow footies, you just said. So how do you control those nerves? And within the build-up, right up until the warm-up or the bounce, how do you just stay composed through that period?
Well, it's probably sort of just flipping the narrative on its head. So I like to think I've become a little bit more of a ground and pound sort of forward, where marking the football is the cream, but the fundamentals of bringing the ball to ground and sort of taking that away, taking the opposition marks away from the defence of the opposition side is probably what I'll build my game on. So that's the one for me. Just flip the narrative and rather think about going for the big marks, actually think about contesting 2-on-1, thriving on the contest, and I suppose that's something that our football club builds its character on.
Coming from a bloke who made a living sitting on heads, I'm not sure whether you're being disingenuous saying I want to bring the ball to ground,
the coach is here,
or
mate,
you're sitting in front of the coach and you're just trying to say the right
for
thing.
the TV cast.
Exactly.
Right.
And let's go inside the rooms, just a couple of private moments and see if you can take us to it. So your preparation, alone, just a moment of solitude and some time to think on the stairs.
Yeah, so last year was just I suppose it was a challenging year for me. It was the first time I'd sort of been called out for my performance in terms of the way I was playing. So I put a heap of mental work into the fundamentals of the way I play. I'm not a quick player. I'm not super fast. I'm not super strong, but I'm pretty agile. So the mindfulness part of the game, and you can see that I was sitting on the stairs, playing that in my head, playing the momentum of trying to cut, move my hands as if I'm going to try and cut in behind Lockie Henderson, who plays with me, try to play to my strengths. Just that visualisation was something that I'd done through the back end of the final series. Probably didn't work for me in the first half, but fundamentally, if I get that right, that's the strength of my game. So every player sort of does it in their different way. Mine just happened to be captured on film.
An hour beforehand, you're on your laptop, Damien, and it does look to us like you're probably putting the final touches on your address. Would that be fair?
Yeah, it probably would be. I think you're always... you always think you're really well prepared as a coach, but then you always go one more and you think, oh, I might just change this slide or put this one, you know...
Do you get nervous about that? I've never asked you, do you get nervous about presenting to the group? Because one of Dimmer's absolute strengths is his storytelling. I think it's probably a strength of our football club. Do you ever get worried that the story might not resonate?
Absolutely. Hit and miss, that's the thing. And you work through it. And sometimes I'll change, the night before, the narrative that we're going to go into the game with. but I was pretty confident on this one that it would hit the right note. But it was different because of COVID. We weren't actually in coaches' rooms. We're in more of a, you know, as you can see probably on the screen, like a bigger area. So it loses its intimacy. So it gets a little bit hard sometimes to read the room and for feeling of the room. And, you know, when you are in a smaller type of coaches' room, you can feel the energy. It probably loses that a little bit. So you had to create a little bit more. So I was making a couple of changes. I can't quite recall what they were, but it's probably just to make the typing a bit bigger because the TV screen was actually the size of my iPhone, to be perfectly honest. It wasn't very big.
So I want to know, how much can you take in? How much lives? This might be
very good question, Jerry. Very good.
Well, I always remember the pre-games by the gifts we've been given.
Explain that.
So there's always a week-to-week story, and it's sport, different parts of life, people that have achieved great things, and I think you try to make it resonate with the way we're playing at the time or who we might be playing, and then we get a symbol of the story pre-game. So guys always rush in after Dimmer's meeting because there's going to be a little present sitting on their jumper, and then you find yourself wearing. I've got a whole new wardrobe from last year's hub that I
needed it.
That I rock around in. But I can remember getting a T-shirt grand final day. Some of the more special ones I've got were we got a rock, and we brought our own rocks in 2019 and wrote people's names on them. Still got that. Given all little caricatures and handwritten letters and vinyls and whatnot. So. They all mean something very special. My favourite's Burn the Boats, though, from 2017. So I'll never forget that one.
What did you go with?
Oh, we went with the Bill Belichick, Do Your Job. You know, we spoke about their year, and effectively they had some guys through injury in the year that they won it. I can't remember the exact year, but there's a guy by the name of Ty Law who was a receiver by, you know, basically got drafted as a receiver but had to switch to the other side of the ball and become a cornerback throughout the year. And his whole motto and the Patriots' motto that year was just do your job. You know, don't worry about what else is happening around. If you just complete your role, the player beside you completes their role, we're going to get the job done. And that's effectively what we went with. So the boys got a Patriots shirt with, I think, number 80, I think he may have been on the back.
How worked up can he get?
Well, when we're talking about NFL, he can get worked up big time. But no, I think that's the selling point of the story is the emotional buy-in and connection. And you can tell that he pours his heart and soul into these presentations and understands that they set the tone, basically, for the way we're going to play. And it starts sort of 2 days out and then finishes right before the bounce. And we go out there with a job to do, and we do it pretty well.
We've just seen the vision of both sides running out onto the ground. So you guys have been so used to running out onto the G over the past few years on the biggest stage. Did it feel different on this occasion?
I think initially just the fact that it was dark was a little bit of an anomaly, and
this is different.
Yeah, this is an unusual way to get the cup out there, but. Going through my head, and this has been obviously in the 2 grand finals prior to this that we've played in, if you look at the team photo, every player is smiling from 2017 and 2019. So I'm running out going, all right, I'm going to sit next to Dimmer and don't forget to smile. Don't be the one player in the photo that's got the stern look going into what is the most fun game of your career. So always thinking about smiling, and I suppose it's infectious with our group.
So the stage is set, the cup is there. Next, the most dramatic opening to a grand final since 1989. Welcome back to One Night in Brisbane. Let's take you to the opening minutes, the incidents, the accidents and the sheer drama at the start of the 2020 Grand Final.
Craig Fleer to get it underway. Stanley and Nankervis, 2020 Grand Final at the Gabba. He's out cold behind the play here, Floston. What happened?
He ran straight to danger. That was one where Danger's punched the ball and followed through.
Yeah, wow.
Amblett's in trouble too, by the way, guys.
So it's wild at this stage. There's chaos on the field. There's tumult in the stands. What's in the coach's box?
Yeah, it was... I remember watching the play. I didn't actually see... I saw the bit of play, but I didn't actually see that Nick was knocked out. And I remember Adam Kingsley saying, Nick's out. I said, what do you mean he's out? And he's knocked out. So I just sort of watched it, and then I looked back and I went, oh... Because you sort of think of the conditions that were at play, very slippery. The ball was going to be, you know, basically bludgeoned forward. If there's ever a guy that I thought was probably going to chance to be best on ground for us, apart from Dustin, it was going to be Nick Vlastuin. And so to have him knocked out in the first, 5 or 6 minutes of the game was like, all right, what are we doing now? We were fortunate that we did go in with an extra back. We're going to play our backman through the ruck. So we had Dave Asprey on the bench, but obviously in those sort of conditions, we probably looked a little bit tall at this stage.
Is it that quick, your reaction? So do you allow yourself 10 seconds to be disappointed, or is it, what do we do now, straight away?
Oh, I was disappointed. We were sort of looking to see whether he would actually come to, but I remember one of the more ridiculous things I've ever done in my life, Nick is being wheeled off on the cart, and I said to the doc, I said, listen, this is a really, really stupid question. Is he out? Fair to say, he said, stupid question next.
Well, that's the ultimate test, isn't it, of that rule that it hasn't happened yet.
And as soon as someone's knocked out, they're done. Yeah. So,
all right, who's talking in this huddle?
So we're very lucky that we've got a heap of leaders. So Shane Edwards is probably our best football IQ. So he's talking. I think the important symbolism is actually getting together and using that rather than the, poor us, we've just had arguably our best backman knocked out in the first 5 minutes of a grand final. It's, rightio, grab our attention off the fact that we can't do anything about this, but we can actually put it on something else.
Was he... Could you talk to Nick then when you went down?
He was still obviously fairly concussed, but it was more just the point that you have to reward behaviours like that. He's one of our toughest players, puts his head in the hole, and I think it's pretty symbolic just to actually reward that.
Was there any sense that Dangerfield had done anything untoward out on the ground?
I don't think so. No. It's a split second, and I mean, we play a physical sport, and I mean that's a part of the game. It's just unlucky. So it did go through my mind a little bit earlier. It was like, he's probably one that we wouldn't like to lose. He arguably All-Australian last year and one of our most important players. You start to do the reshuffle in your head, and the coaches have done that in the box, but as a senior player, start going, well, actually, hang on, we've got Asprey on the bench, so it's sort of, well, we were a bit lucky.
And did you see Ablett go off?
No, I didn't know that Ablett went off.
No, I didn't either until it comes up on champion data, I think a blue, which means an injury, or it might be... Yeah, I think it's blue. And all of a sudden someone goes, oh, Ablett's hurt. And, so then he was off for a significant period of time. So then we weren't quite sure what Gary's issue was, and then we started to see the replays of his shoulder.
So are you asking in the box, does anyone know what's going on with Ablett?
Oh, I just said, someone keep an eye on Ablett, what's going on there. But we were still trying to get our side together and what that looked like. And then we got the news that Basher had popped his calf probably about a minute after the game started as well. So... then all the bells and whistles started going.
So how does that get realised? So Basher obviously has to tell someone to pass it on?
It came up, and I heard someone say, Basher's in trouble.
So this is pre-game? This is just in the moments before the siren?
Yeah.
So are we tracing it back here?
Well, I wasn't aware that he did have some sort of discomfort that he hurt in the warm-up. Not a discomfort, but like a tightness.
Yep.
But that happens, sort of vast majority of players. But then it came up that we think he's in trouble. I went, oh, that's just not our night.
So who oversees? So you've got two defenders. One's out and one's in a bit of trouble.
Yep.
Is that you that takes control of that, or is that the backline coach?
No, it's a collective decision, because the reality is we're all making decisions about, because every decision you make affects another line along the way. So we're going to use one of our wingers to play back. That means a forward has to come up and play wing. We're going to be short. We're just going to have, if we're down to two, it's going to be a back half, forward half rotation, and it's just best fit.
Do you get Asprey or Broad or one of those guys that might have to now step up and play that sort of Loston role, or Grimes? Do you get them on the phone and give them an extra G up, or...?
It's funny, not at that stage. Adam Kingsley may have done that. I certainly didn't. To be frank, I don't really speak a lot to the players on game day. The line coaches do the vast majority of that work. I'll be saying, listen, can you talk to such and such about this? But the line coaches are very much in control of their own their own unit, really.
When play goes to restart, do you have the sense, there's a lot on the next few minutes here, given we've had 5 minutes of play and then a delay that you just don't see in grand finals?
Yeah, we did. We were just wondering how our backs would settle, because also Geelong aren't overly tall up forward. They basically play Tom Hawkins as the Lone Ranger, and then Gary Rowan is a smaller, like third tall as a second tall. So we thought, geez, we might be a bit tall here. So we're just interested to see how that would go and how we'd hold up in that stages. But, once again, the side that settles best after that period will actually tend to come out a little bit more assertive, a little bit more aggressive on their toes, and I thought we did that reasonably well.
OK, so nothing settled in the first quarter. We get to quarter time. In a moment, the second quarter, where the Cats make their break. This is one night in Brisbane as we relive the seminal moments to the 2020 Grand Final. And in the second term, the Cats make their break.
Good kick, holding the line. They're going to be hard to catch. Well, that's going to be replayed a bit. All their players are feeling good about themselves right now. They're all feeling like they've contributed.
They're going to be hard to catch. Any affinity here?
It's funny, the conversations that start happening between lines. So you can go to panic stations, or you can go to, how are we going to fix this? And our conversations are midfield to back. It was like, right, let's just steady the ship. So we needed to get a hold of the ball for starters. Geelong had obviously been on top of us for a while there. And personally, a little bit of alarm bells are going off my own head. I haven't touched the ball much. One touch I had been a turnover. But I have to bring myself back and bring the side back and the forward line especially into what we can control. The language we'd used in the Brisbane final where we did lose, we still had that belief late in the game, and we sort of believed if the game had kept going there, we might have won that one as well. So we had a little bit of a good trial run for that, where we could try and arrest momentum and actually have the right conversations rather than detrimental ones. But clearly we were under the pump, and we needed someone to stand up, or we all needed to stand up.
Yeah, it's funny, we sort of knew the issues on the night. We were getting hemmed in our back half, we were blast kicking to Geelong's numbers, and we just couldn't quite break that first line. We lost a little bit of forward structure, but it's really, really hard to, get those changes happening across the three lines, with a certain amount of time. It takes about a 4 or 5 minute patch to do that. So we knew the issues, but we thought we'd have to, get to half-time, then reset the ground. We also knew we were very tall down back, so we had to make a changes there. So we had that starting to work about how that was going to look. But we just managed to, we need to get the ball in our front half. If we could do that, we thought we'd be OK.
And we'll drop back into this because it does happen before half-time. We could sense it from afar. You would have lived it. It's really the last 4 minutes. Martin's goal is sort of the emphatic moment, but there was more to it than that. So let's pick up late in the second term.
Sends it long and deep. Rewalt got under the footy a little. Look at them gang up on Lynch there. If there weren't four, left Martin around the body, high ball, he's got it.
What a moment.
Gee, just at that moment that you wanted him to kick a goal.
So while we're watching that, you're reliving it. And the tactical changes, the emotional changes, those are vital minutes on the way to half-time.
Yeah, they were. Like, we were... Stuart was killing us in the first half, really, and then we sort of... normally Jack, and the reason Jack's a great player is he's normally competing 1v2, but we just couldn't quite get it done on the night. So, some messages went out and we went to 6 forwards just to try and nullify that impact, and we started to get the ball a little bit more forward to our even numbers, which certainly helped.
Yeah, I think for us, the fundamental change, when you go to 6 forward, the mindset is it's 6v6, because Stuart, as we're saying, we're trying to run around and Jace Castanier's trying to play on him whilst also trying to play structure and play the way we play, and it just wasn't working for us. So Shane Edwards was probably the one that came up with it. He was sort of like, well, let's try 6 forwards, and starts a filter. The conversation happens with Dustin and Lynchy. What do we think? Let's get some impact forward of the ball. And we know that Dustin is arguably the best one-on-one player in the competition. If we can get him forward in a one-on-one contest, then we know that's going to work out for us. So I think that sort of really set the scene for that momentum shift. And then the conversations post the siren going are probably the most important ones, because this bloke here is not known as a leader outside of the football club, but he's the one that grabbed everyone and said, hey, we're right into this. We're right up to our eyeballs in this game, and we could feel that the momentum has shifted back our way.
So that's just a hint. I know you want to get into this. Can I just take you to the coach's box, Damien? Just the 30 seconds after the siren, where I imagine you're absorbing a few different things and formulating your own thoughts. We'll take you there. You put us inside your head.
We were. We're sitting there, and the one good thing about grand final days, you do actually get longer. The halftime break goes a little bit longer. So we needed a little bit of time to digest, and we thought, listen, these are the issues. We know the answers, but we need to move a couple of pieces to get a better result. So take the time, walk down, let's figure it out, then we'll come back together, speak to the players, and then we'll come together as a group and work through it.
How do you discern between, OK, we need to tinker with our system and, you know, either holding 6 forwards or sending one in to support stoppage, and we're just not playing that well? How do you decide between the two?
Well, there's a little bit of both. There was stuff that our system... We always talk about our system and our intent. We thought our intent was great. You know, Geelong's pressure was through the roof. That was as high a pressure, I think, as they'd had in the first half of footy all year. We just felt that we were getting let down by probably a couple of... You know, we coughed the ball up a couple of times. We tried to be a little bit too cute. We just weren't quite playing Richmond footy that we know and love. So that was a reset from our group. But there were a couple of things structurally that we knew we had to do to try and nullify the impact of, you know, their spare behind the ball, but also a couple of things that we could implement to get a better look for us behind the ball as well.
And so as you leave the coach's box, you're going down with that clear in your mind, OK, this is what it looks like.
Well, to a degree, but I need the assistant coaches to help me plug the gaps.
Yep.
So that's what, you know, they're great at what they do. You know, we sit there and collectively make a decision about what it looks like. OK, well, how do we get it done?
You, Jack, so you spoke at the start about being aware of the conversation around you. You've had 1 to half-time and it's a turnover. As well as the collective, how detailed is the focus internally on what you've done or what you haven't done?
You know when you haven't touched the ball, and you know when you're not going as well as you'd like, especially on a big stage. And I think for us, we're very lucky to have a lady called Emma Murray who has done amazing things for our group and given us some great tools to be as mentally prepared as possible. So it's about catching my attention and catching our attention and shifting the narrative and shifting what I'm focusing on. And the big one for me is actually, rather than focusing on myself, go and talk to someone else. Go and have a conversation with another forward that may be struggling and try and actually start to implement something that's going to fix it and attach yourself to that. And individually getting back to my strengths as a player. So sitting on the stairs there, thinking about how I'm going to play Henderson. I'm being held down a lot. He's playing me well from behind. What am I going to do to do something different in the second half and get a different result?
So, Damien, you've spoken about the tactical side of things. What about the emotional side of things at halftime in a grand final when you're trailing?
Yeah, well, we after we did the tackle, we come together as a group and we sort of speak about... We've been down this path before with Geelong. We've been in exactly the same position. I didn't realise at the time, but I think it was the exact difference of...
2 points different.
Yeah, qualifying final a number of years ago. And we were very, very strong and forthright about, listen, if we continue to invest in ourselves, if we continue to tell our story, we're going to generate enough ball to you know, kick a score and, you know, soak up the deficit, so to speak. So we did implement a couple of things, and the situation is the coach can sit there and speak as much as he wants, but it's your leaders on field that need to take over. You know, as soon as they cross the white line, it's Jack, it's Trent, it's Dylan Grimes. These players had set the scene very early in that third quarter.
When you've got a great team and you've been with them a long time, are there any flecks of doubt in your mind?
Absolutely.
So coming into the game, so do you then have contingencies of, OK, if we're up by 5 goals, I've thought about the message I'll give the group. If we're down by 5, equally I'm prepared. Is that part of your preparation coming in?
A little bit, but It's more about, like, if things specifically tactically aren't working well, it's more along those lines. Generally, I reckon I've got a really good understanding about what our side needs, whether it's a fire and brimstone type speech or more of an emotional connection sort of spiel that they're after. And it's funny, like, when I speak to the group, you get a really good look at the players because they're in nice and close, and the skipper is always right there and he's always smiling, and that's what I think we might be okay, sort of thing. You know, if he's feeling good about himself, he generally sets that scene pretty early. So I think he's always got that goofy look on his face, but he does it pretty well, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
I do want to ask, what do the doubts sound like in your head?
It was just like, because I was really worried about Basher as well. Like, I remember speaking to him on the phone and saying, listen, mate, I need Allah on our side today. We need to get back on the field. And he laughed and he got back on. Basher is one of those guys that calf, like, he's still struggling with that. You know, he won't probably get up for round one because of it. So it was a significant injury that he battled through. But I was worried about that. I was worried whether we'd pulled the right reins with, you know, Camden McIntosh playing back. But the great thing about our group is we sent Camden back to play VFL during the year, to play half-back in case this happened. Right. So once again, our preparation, our coaches have done a wonderful job preparing our players for this. And then we played a small forward. I can't remember who it was on the wing.
Jace Castagna, yeah. So I think the preparation's there. From a player point of view, it's probably one thing that you have in-game during a season, you're like, why is Rioli playing on the wing? Or why is Castagna playing on the wing? But for moments like this, there's a reason. There is a method to the madness from the guys up in the coach's box.
Do you have any doubts at half-time?
Definitely doubts going through your head of... when you've been successful for a long time, inevitably, sometimes you're always thinking, oh, is the end coming? And being an older player and the narrative I've spoken about is always, is the end coming? And it can become tough to change it and think differently, but I feel like I've got the tools, and I feel like we've got the tools to actually just keep beating it away and knowing that it's there, and inevitably it will come at some point, but that wasn't the time.
So there's a lot happening at halftime in the Gabba rooms. Up next, the third quarter Tiger assault.
The people are back at the footy and we can't wait.
Soak that up wherever you are. Prime time footy. Nobody does it better. Crowd goes off. As good as it gets.
One chapter closes, another one opens.
Oh boy, she's on now.
It's entertaining, it's fast-paced, there's hangers, there's goals. It's everything you want in the footy.
It's Geelong by 15 points at the main break that one night in Brisbane. But the Tigers, they make their moves swiftly at the start of the third.
There, Rewald tries to knock it forward. Rioli had a cracker as well. Spills to Martin. Little right foot slider along the ground. He's got another one. Martin's kicked another one. It's his second of the game, and he puts the Tigers in front. Tigers 4 goals to 1 in the quarter.
There is a Michael Jordan quality to this. Just put it in the most dangerous bloke's hands.
Just has a sense for it, doesn't he? Yeah. He has this knack of just showing up when we need him. He's our break glass in case of emergency, and it's phenomenal. It's so phenomenal what he does in the big games, and we're bloody lucky to have him.
Yeah. He just can, you know, when people often say the superstars of the competition, you don't coach. They just are. They're just who they are. People often say, oh, you know, how do you get... Well, I don't. He just puts himself where he needs to be. He knows what we need it, when we need it. And I'd love to sit there and say I've been an enormous influence on this guy's career, but the reality is he's a superstar the minute he walked in our building.
I'll never forget Adam Kingsley, who's done some coaching with Roo, came in about 2-3 years ago from St Kilda and came in and was coaching the mids, and Dusty came back early from to pre-season, and King has grabbed him and he's like, he wanted to impart a bit of wisdom and showing him how to do the bit of stoppage work, and Dustin looked at him, he's like, yeah, I think I'll be right, mate. I've got this covered, mate. Kinger's heart sank, poor bugger.
The goal you kicked at the start of the third term, how important is that for you?
Well, I think it built my confidence. that's my MO. Get in behind, try and be agile, make my defender either like a blind spot in a car. If he can't, he has to turn like this. He's got to take his eyes off the ball, and to get that early touch after obviously not touching it much in the first quarter was really important personally, and I think for the team as well, just to get that early goal. Yeah. We did speak about not trying to get everything back at once. There's still a half footy to go. We don't need to peg it all back in the next quarter, but just to get that early one, to get the ball rolling was pretty important.
So for all the planning and adjustments that you made at half-time, do you feel at the start of the third quarter like, OK, that the game's changed, it's a bit more back on our terms?
Yeah, I thought we used the ball a little bit more through hands, took it off the line, moved it away from Geelong's numbers a little bit. Like that first goal, I think that Jack was the beneficiary of here. You know, it was a bit of a handball chain because the conditions... Geelong handled the conditions a lot better, I think, in probably the second quarter more so. We were probably still trying to play wet weather footy a little bit too much. So I thought our guys, you know, took the feedback on board and got back to the plan that we came in the game with. So it was a really positive step for us, especially, like we said, you don't want to emphasise how important that first goal was, but it was just as important as the previous one from Dustin at the back end of the second quarter.
There's a phenomenal handball in there from Koch, and I can remember it's sort of those one of the ones where he gets the ball and handballs it to Jack Graham, and I sort of look back and I've watched that bit of play and think, how on earth did he get his hand on that to get it to Jack Graham, who then gets it to the outside, short to Martin, and then obviously kicks it into me. So just, I don't think we can ever speak highly enough of the impact that he had. He laid that tackle in 2019 after half-time and set the scene. He did those little inspirational 1%ers that just builds the momentum. Guys, he leads the way and guys just jump on the back and he charges through.
And there is an element of, once you lock in for the ferocity of your play, it makes the opposition jittery. I think we've seen that across 4 years. So, and you don't want to make this mistake in a grand final, but it's Jake Kolodjasny's to own. What's the dynamic of that like out on the ground when you can see the material impact of what you're bringing?
I think it feeds the beast that is where we're starting to arrest momentum and get back on top. And there's a real confidence that comes with that. Football is a game of momentum, and we certainly did a lot to arrest momentum, and you can see it. Even the Castagna goal floats through. And you start to feel a little bit better about yourself. Reece Stanley's not standing on the goal line as a ruck, and Lynchy gets up and starts getting a bit vocal, and you can see that he starts to feel a bit better about himself, and it actually builds, and you start to walk a little bit taller.
Do you use that then as ammunition at three-quarter time? So the game's back on your terms, the energies change, the scoreboard reflects that, and, you know, call it Geelong got a little bit jittery, you brought your pressure. Do you then feed off that as a coach and make sure the players are aware of it?
Yeah, I think we felt that, look, our pressure was through the roof that third quarter as well, and it looked like what we call a Richmond game. You know, we started to dominate territory, we started to close down their uncontested marks, and they probably started to kick a little bit longer that they don't normally like to do from the back half. So we started to capitalise on those mistakes. And like Jack said, when a side is on top, they're taking that step forward instead of just being flat-footed. And our guys are, you know, leaning forward the whole time, stepping in mentality, and you could sense that from the coach's box as well.
Is that your message here then? Foot on the throat?
I can't actually recall, to be fair.
I think it was along the lines of, you've got to be really careful because you can be really emotive and everyone goes out and it's all of a sudden the message is lost and it's up in the world like that. But the structure was the fundamentals. It was the mountain climbing theory that we've used for so long now, is just 1 foot in front of the next. It's the process. There's also the element of emotive there. I think you said you love us, so thanks very much for that. But it came back to it, and it can be just words, but you always speak about the way we play and not the scoreboard. And I think that really settles the guys, knowing that you truly believe that win, loss or draw, and yes, we always want to win and every side wants to win, but it's the way we go about it. It's not the end result. Yes, it's great to win premierships, but it's the way we go about it, and that's what players attach themselves to playing under him.
It's 2 points at three-quarter time. It feels like a grand final thriller, but there is a ruthless twist from the Tigers to come.
Silence for the champ.
champions.
To the climax of that one night in Brisbane. At three-quarter time, it's the Tigers by 2 points, but the scent of history is strong in their nostrils as we join the final two.
You saw the stat a moment ago. Geelong, the only team in the last 35 seasons to come from behind and win at three-quarter time as we go for the final term in the most remarkable season.
Making sure he uses every second of the allowable 30. And there's the intended target. It's a difficult chance, and he's got that on line. Gee, that's good.
Yep.
Gee, that was just superb off the boot. Rewalt salutes, and the Tigers. So Rewalt becomes a multiple goal kicker in this game with 2, along with Prestia with 2, and Martin with 3. Good effort, Gil McLaughlin, and I think everyone owes a debt of gratitude to him for keeping this season alive, but he's enjoying the Richmond moment.
Just see Rewalt's goal. One word comes to mind with Richmond is resilient, and to absorb what they were able to absorb in the first half and be completely faultless in the second half is an absolute credit to them. And as you mentioned, Hodgie, you had Lynch and Rewalt had no impact in the game in the first half. They played their role. They turned up down the line. Not much was going for them. And it's opened up in the second half for them.
And Dimmer expressing the joy of knowing what's happened now. So 8 goals to 2.
All the glory of it all. Are you claiming the sealer, Jack?
Well, in the commentary, they say about the Lee Matthews theory of if there's minutes to goals, if it's a 1-to-1 ratio, it's all right. So in that case, I am claiming the sealer.
Are you giving him the sealer?
I'm giving him the sealer. I thought when he kicked this was a fantastic kick, and this is what he does very well.
I'm looking forward to the box audio saying if you think that's a sealer, because I reckon not long after this, he actually came down onto the ground, but I'd missed one before this, and it was one that I marked and I thought, this is a really important shot, and it just missed it right. But I honestly don't think I've ever hit one as good as I hit that one there. And it was a fair kick by little Liam Baker to hit me on his left on the lead. And then this is just the emotion of obviously kicking a goal late in the grand final.
I reckon you've celebrated this goal harder than you did on the final siren.
Kicked one against Brisbane one year from that pocket, actually, and carried on a bit more like that. But, yeah, this is just, I suppose, it's just joy, really, knowing that it's going to go your way.
What's the knowing like? Is it joyful?
Well, it's funny. As a coach, you never really know. But what I will say, after this goal, Chris Scott came into our coach's box and congratulated us, which was incredible. Like, we're still, well, I think the assistants had packed up at this stage, but I'm still going, listen, you blokes, we're still... And then Chris... he just congratulated us, said great game. And, it was such a class act by such a class guy, really.
Is the suspense of 2 points at three-quarter time and then knowing late in the contest... Is that almost more satisfying than knowing, say, the year before, halfway through the third quarter?
Yeah, I think it is. I think this is a really, really tough thing to say, but I think this is our best grand final win. I sort of look at it as one of the hardest, most challenging years that I think we'll ever go through. And it was just such a fantastic effort by our players and our club overall to walk away with what I think is going to go down as one of the hardest trophies ever to win.
This is a moment that is going to live on Hall of Fame night when he's inducted, when he's elevated to a legend in 30 years' time. This is preposterous, kicking this goal, is it not? Even for what you get to see.
He kicked one against the Giants, pretty similar to this as well from that sort of pocket, but the key to his success is inner belief and the fact that he is happy to be unique and he knows what he's good at. He knows what he's good at. He doesn't focus or dwell on the deficiencies of his game, which there really isn't many, but he knows what he's good at and he knows when to impact, and he will get everything he deserves post-footy with the accolades, and he's a He's a great person and a great leader.
The significance of it, Damien, it did strike me as being like Mackay Diva winning the 3rd Melbourne Cup. There was the possibility of it, and then you were starting to imagine, well, what if it happens? During the game, did you have the feeling, oh, my God, he's going to win this again, you know?
I probably did towards, I think this was the final one. And look, the significance to me was there was 5 players around and he managed to get that ball and, you know, Danger's trying to grasp into that tackle and then just 2 great players and one guy just kicking that goal. And, you know, to see that goal at the end, it was just like only he could kick it, I think, and it probably just put a nail in the Norm Smith for mine, a nail in the coffin.
Do you put a measure on it? So for all the tactical adjustments and for all the culture and, you know, he's done that again in the grand final, the prelim the year before, post half-time. I mean, what sort of... You can't put a value on him.
No.
But are you in this position without his ability to be so special in those big moments?
Well, I think what we do have is we have a system of play that really allows people within that system to use their talents. You know, like, for example, Jack is a wonderful player, Trent's a wonderful player, Dustin's an incredible player. But what we have is a system of play that is designed to get the very best out of each player. And he does that. You know, there's things that he does. Like, you look at all of his 4 goals grand final day, they were just... One surpassed the other, I should say. They were just incredible, you know, goals. And you look back at that grand final and just shake your head, really.
Do you feel blessed to be playing with him?
I think we're blessed to play with him, but I think we're just... I'm really proud of who he's become. And the growth in him as a person and as a mate, like, I couldn't be more proud of what he's done. And I think it's reflective on who we're going to see going forward as well. I think we're going to see a much more mature player. I think we're going to see... The sky really is the limit, and I hope he continues to... And I know that he will value how important he is from a vice-captain's point of view, from a captain's point of view and from a coach's point of view, how much we actually lean on him. And I think he starts to get a bit of a grasp of how important he is, not only as a player, but nearly as the cultural figure of Richmond.
I don't know whether there was anything more Australian last year than when Ash Barty's at your Tigers game with a beer in hand, and there she is to present you with the cup. It'll look like in 30 years' time it'll be, what was going on here? And yet it seemed to make perfect sense.
It did. You know, Ash has been a big supporter of ours and, you know, does a lot of work with some similar people that our club employs as well. And she probably... I think she's, like, epitomises Richmond in a tennis sense. Like, the way she plays the game is tenacious and, yeah, well, I think our club, you know, we fit hand in hand, really. Yeah,
we've certainly attached ourselves to her, but she... It's a sporting highlight for her, she said, actually, better than the French Open and whatnot. But even that decision to go down a path of someone different presenting the cup is a unique one. And I'm most proud about our football club because we don't march to the beat of anyone else's drum. We actually do it our way, and we're happy to be unique and we're happy to be different and we're happy to stand up for things that we believe in, like Black Lives Matter. And we've really attached ourselves to our Indigenous past and our Indigenous past in our football club. And some people look at that and go, oh, that's not the way to do it, but we're happy to do it that way.
So you get to that moment, Dimmo, where you're up on the dais and you hold the cup up, and clearly it makes everything that you went through last year worth it, because it was a year unlike any other for all teams in the competition. But even for you guys, there were some un-Richmond-like moments when you were in the press for not all the right reasons throughout the year as a group. So sort of on reflection now, do you look back and just look at all those little moments as part of that story that ultimately delivered you the best result?
Yeah, we always talk about our journey, and there's always going to be bumps along the way. You know, at the start of the year we didn't, look, I personally didn't cope that well with COVID. I was doing my head in the training groups. Then we had, you know, significant injuries along the way. We had a couple of, you know, breaches with protocols, but generally what happens, you can look at, things one of two ways, as an obstacle or opportunity. And we sort of viewed that as an opportunity to galvanise, to come together, us against the world mentality. Let's get it done. Let's prove everyone wrong. Everyone was writing the story to write us off. And we thought, you know what, they've got those stories written already. Let's flip the script. So it was a really challenging part.
Just remind you, I backed you in at 60.
Yeah, good.
just remind you, I called it early.
Yeah. So the toll that was associated with the year, which is very real for individuals and for the collective, was it all worth it in that moment?
Yeah, it's a different emotion, this grand final, like the post-game, than certainly the first one and the second one as well. It was a real sense of relief, but also the sense of conquering, going away, being away from home, all the emotional stuff that comes with living your life in a different state for 3 months on the back of the last 4 weeks being, we could be going home in 2 days and we could be doing all this sort of stuff. And knowing that the heartbeat of the football club is predominantly back here in Richmond and they're not there to celebrate the journey, there's all those sort of little things that run through your mind. But I wholeheartedly agree with what Dimma said before, is that this is, in terms of satisfying, this is the one for me.
And so for all that you lived through, and I'm still staggered how simple it is for the opposition coach to infiltrate your box during the grand final.
What about the protocol?
To have come away without it, which is not something that you have to face up to, but if you hadn't won it for all that you'd gone through, and this is obviously Chris's reality, would it... I don't know, there's such a gulf between winning and losing on grand final day. It feels like all that was fed into that, it might have made it even wider than normal.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because, I don't know about you, I've always found the prelims are the hardest games. And making the grand final really is a celebration. I think the Americans do it really well with the Super Bowl. It is really a celebratory nature. You come together and celebrate. And I think our grand final is slowly getting that way as well. But just for us and Geelong to make it to the very end, when realistically we probably weren't the lead horse coming into the turn, although Nick will state the obvious, was an enormous achievement for both of us. To be away out of your home for 100-odd days, to play on, decks that we weren't normally accustomed to. I think it was an incredible achievement for both sides. But it was very bittersweet, as Jack said, because a lot of our families and friends couldn't be there. Our supporters are back home. Well, I'm still dying to get down bloody Swan Street with that cup at some stage.
And to conclude, so the third of how many, how does it burn? The more you get it, the more you want it. These are the studies of great teams the world over, which I know you've been thinking about. As you relaunch into it in just a few nights' time, what's your sense of that?
Yeah, look, I'm very fortunate. One of the things that, as you said, done a lot of research, a lot of reading over summer, and the one thing that generally falls into sides that have been incredibly successful is ego. I'm very fortunate to have a great footy club and great leaders that are very, very humble in what they've done, but also, more importantly, very hungry to succeed into getting the journey started. But, once again, our guys set the scene very early. We go away, we go away in a camp and we reset the theme for the year, and it's all about the journey for us. We are very fortunate to have an environment where we come to work every day, surrounded by a great group of people. We walk in with a smile, and our aim is to walk out with a smile. That's when you know you're at a great workplace.
Does it feel more?
I think it gives you great knowledge that process works, and that if anything, it actually dials down the want to personally succeed anymore. And you can see it start to filter through the younger players that may not have been there grand final day, or guys that are still in the early parts of their career where they just want to get a game, but it actually starts to bring them along the journey and actually get 150 games, 100 games of experience in them without actually having to play the games. And they understand that they feel a real sense of worth and sense of team. And it's probably the hardest thing to do in an AFL club is you've got 44 blokes and you pick 22 every week to satisfy everyone's needs. But certainly we feel like what we do outside of actually playing does that.
Is it too early to declare them again, Jeff? They're going to take some stopping.
Well, good luck on that journey. These scenes, they live as part of footy folklore, and it's been great to relive some of the stories behind them with you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
That was one night in Brisbane. A look back at the 2020 AFL Grand Final.
This has been a Fox Sports production.